Like what are the components of a WSDl, components of an XXD?
No, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
Okay. Sure, no problem. Let's say, so this is a generic service which is called as a global weather service. So for example, if I open this URL in the browser, it is a generic service where it has two operations. One is get cities by country and the other one is get weather. So what does this get cities by country operation does? So whenever you give any country name, it will list all the cities which are part of that country. See, when I invoke this, you can see this. The response where it is listing all the city names which is part of India. Okay. Now, how does this web services WSDl looks like? See, basically WSDl stands for Web Services Descriptive Language. Okay, Web Services Descriptive Language. It describes how does your web service works and the functionalities and the skeleton wise. So if you want to check this global weather service WSDl, you can take the service URL in the browser followed by $WSDl. When you enter it in the browser itself, it will load the WSDl which is being used by this service. So you take any web service into consideration, you can check the WSDl of that in the browser itself by hitting and WSDl. Okay. So now I will just copy the same thing into my Notepad++. So always you can better to use a Notepad++ as you are working on an XML based message format. So when I usually copy this, right, I remember I have told you but not sure. So when I copy this, it will be in the black color, you can see here, right? Here you don't identify which element and it is whether the XML tag is getting opened or closed. So in order to make this more easy for us to understand, go to language and change it to XML. So now you can see this sequence element is getting opened here at the line number 6 and it is closing at line number 9. Similarly, element. So it is very easy for you to understand the entire syntax of the XML file by changing the language to XML. So now over here, if you see the first line in the in the WSDl file always begins with WSDl definitions. WSDl definitions. You can see that WSDl definitions is getting started here and that will be the last tag that will be closed. If you just scroll down, you can see this. Correct. Your entire WSDl is being defined within WSDl definitions. So no need to worry about this WSDl because we never write these WSDLs. Okay. Be it a DataPower developer or an admin, we never write these WSDLs and XXDs. So we will be getting it from the backend team at the server team. We just use it at the DataPower end. That's it. Okay. So just for the understanding purpose, what are all this WSDL consists of, we are going through with this session. Okay. So the first component of a WSDL will be always a WSDL definitions, which means your entire WSDL is being defined within this WSDL definitions. The entire service is being described within WSDL definitions tag. And you can see here in the WSDL file, everything is starting with WSDL colon, correct? WSDL colon port type, WSDL colon operation, WSDL colon documentation. So what does this WSDL colon means? In order for that to understand, we have to declare the namespace. So we call it as a namespace. You can see here XML NS is called as XML namespace. This is a standard definition we are just inheriting in our file. So if you remember, like if you have worked on the C program, we write it as hash include stdio.h, hash include math.h, correct? So which will allow us to do the mathematical functions. So similarly here, before I use any of these, I have to declare their corresponding namespaces. So if you see here, the WSDl one, it is a standard one where it says the namespace. You can see here. See, this is a namespace which is making a reference to your WSDl. If you open this, see, this is a standard definition of a WSDl. So we are just inheriting that in our file so that when the processor tries to process this WSDl file, it will understand what does this WSDl means. And hence, we have to declare that namespace in the beginning itself. Clear or confusion? Yes?
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Followed by the second component is WSDl types. WSDl types will always makes a reference to your schema. Schema is nothing but XSD, XML schema definition. See, WSDl stands for Web Services Descriptive Language. XXD stands for XML schema definition. So what is this schema refers to? Schema is nothing but it gives us a skeleton of our message. How does your request message should be formed? How does your response message should be formed? What are the variables or what are the elements that your request and response should consist of? What are the data types of those elements? These are all described by your WSDl within your schema. Schema gives us an information about the overall skeleton of the XML message. So you can observe this. So have you worked on SoapUI? SoapUI? No.
Again about it.
Correct. So SoapUI is a tool which we use for testing all our web services. Be it be a DataPower service or any web service, if you want to test it, you can test it through SoapUI. It's a freeware tool. Okay, you can just download it from the internet if you want. So just we use it mainly in DataPower. We use this SoapUI to test our services. Sorry. See, if you open the SoapUI, okay, so let me open the SoapUI. See, I can load this entire WSDl into my SoapUI. So in order to use this WSDl file, once you open the SoapUI tool, go to File, hit on New Soap Project. Okay, go to File and hit on New Soap Project. So then it will ask you to choose the WSDl file. So whatever the WSDl that you want to test it, you can just use this browse button to upload that. Let's say I'll upload my global weather WSDl. Okay, I'm just choosing the same global weather service WSDl into my SoapUI. Okay, hit on OK. Now, once after it is loaded, you can see on the left hand side, global weather SOAP. Within that you have get cities by country and get weather. So if you open any of these, let's say get cities by country, open the request and double hit on that request one, and that will be loaded over here.
Yes, please stay on mute.
Sorry?
You're still getting disturbance.
No, sorry, come again?
No, still getting some background noise, Ganesh.
Oh, okay, 1 second.
Lot of disturbance. Is there any way you can mute us?
So now is it clear?
Yeah, now it's fine. But
Okay.
on the floor.
Okay.
Disturbance.
See here, if you see, you can see that you have get cities by country, within which you are expecting country name as a parameter, correct? So how does this come here? If you look into your WSDl file, you can see here, get cities by country is expecting a parameter called country name, correct? And get weather is expecting a parameter called city name and country name. So you can see here, city name and country name. That means what are the incoming parameters that you are expecting as part of your transaction, and what are the data types of these parameters is being defined by your schema. See, city name can accept a string data type, similarly country name. So this has come in the SoapUI because of your schema only. Without a schema, you cannot have any WSDl. It is your, it's always a coexistence. Whenever you say that you have a WSDl, you will have an XXD with that. Okay, you can see here. So always schema tells us what is the message, what is the parameters that you are going to receive as part of your request and as well as a response. Okay, followed by what are the different types of messages. The third parameter is WSDl message. WSDl message is nothing but what are the different types of messages that you are expecting as part of your service. A request message, a response message, and an error message. See, in is nothing but an incoming request, out is nothing but a outgoing request or a response. So you are going to define it in the WSDl saying that I'm expecting this as a request and this message as a response. Okay, followed by the fourth is WSDl operation. How many number of operations does your DataPower service consist of? See, if you look into the global weather service itself, it has two operations, correct? One is get weather and the other one is get cities by country. These are the two operations. So WSDl operation will let you know what are the different types of operations that you are going to have it within your service. Okay, WSDl operation. And finally, the WSDl binding will let you know what kind of a protocol are you going to use, whether you are using an HTTPS, HTTP GET, HTTP POST, that will be identified by your WSDl binding. So you take any WSDl into consideration, every WSDl file is going to have the same components within the WSDl. Okay, the first component is going to be a WSDl definitions, where it will describe the entire WSDl. Second is WSDl types, which will make a reference to your schema, wherein it gives us an information as how does your request and the response message should be formed, what are the data types of those elements in the request and response. Third is WSDl message. What are the different kinds of messages that our DataPower service is going to receive as part of the service. Fourth is how many number of operations does the DataPower service consist of. get series by country and get weather in this example. That means two operations within one service. See, let's say you have an HDFC online service. So within that you can have net banking as one functionality, personal loan has one operation, housing loan has another operation, correct? So you can have multiple operations within a single service. So how many number of such operations are there and what are they? That will be known from the WSDl operation. And finally, the WSDl binding will let you know what kind of a protocol are you going to use. Whether you are going to use an HTTP GET, an HTTP POST, that will be identified by your WSDl binding. Okay. So you can go through with this W3 schools as well in order to understand this WSDl concepts. As I said, we never write these WSDLs and XXDs. It will be given to us from our backend teams. Okay. So just ping you this. So you can see here. So I'm just pinging you this link, or you can just take a reference, look into this link as well to get a better understanding. Okay. Clear? Yes, any questions? WSDL and XXD? Okay. Followed by see, like we saw like how to take an export of a service, correct? Or a domain. Export is nothing but taking a copy of the entire service or an object or entire data for domain or an appliance into our local machine, correct? So how do I take an export of an individual object and how can I import it? For example, let's say just take your SSL proxy profile itself. You take any object into consideration. Every object, when you open that, you can see there will be an option called export. See, for example, I'll take this sample underscore reverse underscore SSL. Okay. So let's assume that this is my object which I have to take an export. Okay. So once you open that, you can see there is an option over here called export. Correct? Over here. Export. Just hit on that export button. See, when you hit on that, it will ask you to download. Okay. So it will be downloaded into your local system. You can open it from the downloads as well. Right? Sample underscore reverse underscore SSL zip. Correct. Now I can use this export to create another instance of the same object, or if I have to replicate the same configuration on the other domain, I can do it from here. See, I can go to other domain. So earlier I was in the SVR test domain. So now what I'll do, I'll go to a new domain. Let's say DP training domain. So what I have to do, I have to replicate the same object, whatever that was there on the SVR test domain, which is your SSL proxy profile, now onto the DP training domain. So what I'll do, I'll just hit on import. Import configuration is to import the existing configurations onto this domain. So when you hit on the import configuration, it will ask you to choose that zip file which you want to import. It's just nothing but a copy paste, you can say. See, it is asking you to choose a zip file. Now let's say what I'll do. So before that, I'll show you this. I'll check the existing SSL proxy profiles on this domain. Okay, here also there is one object with the same name. Let me remove this and because when I import the same object with the same name, it will give me an error saying that object is already existing. So what I did is I just deleted it from the domain. So now I don't have that sample underscore reverse underscore SSL. Correct? If you can see, you have only sample underscore forward underscore SSL under the DP training domain. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to import that sample underscore reverse underscore SSL zip into my DP training domain. This was the export which I took it from the SVR test domain, correct? Just hit on next. And hit on import. And hit on done and save the configuration. Okay, now if you come back to SSL proxy profile and refresh the list, whatever that newly imported SSL is there, that should be available here. Right? Sample underscore reverse underscore SSL. This is down because we don't have that private key, correct? Because in the SVR test domain we had a different private key, and here I am making a reference to that, but I don't have it in the file management system. That's the reason this object is down. You can see here your identification credentials will be down here. If you look into the object status, see, your crypto profile is down. If you check why it is down, you can check the status here. You can see there is an option called view status, right? When you hit on that, it will give you the status of all the objects which you are using inside this object. See, required object referenced object is not up. Can you see this? Because see, if you remember, as I said, when you take an export, an import or anything, your certificates will not be exported, correct? You have to manually make use of your certificates to upload. So once you upload the corresponding certificates into your file management under the served directory, this object is going to be up and running. Okay? So when you take an export, your certificates files will not be exported. It is just the configuration which is going to be exported, not the files. Yes? Any question? Export and import.
No questions.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So that explains export and import configurations. So you can make use of these import configurations to replicate the same object onto multiple appliances or onto multiple domains. Okay. Followed by, just make a note of things what we have covered so far. So far we have covered the SSL, the creation of a domain, user access, file management systems, crypto objects and the crypto tools, SSL connectivity, front-side handlers, and WSDl and XXD. Correct. So in the next session what we will do is we will try to create an end-to-end service. using whatever that we created so far, like the FSH or the SSLs or the certificates and everything, we'll try to create a web service proxy. Okay, and then we will test this service using the SoapUI, and then we'll check the logs and the troubleshooting. Clear? Let me just check once. Yes, so the next will be using this. If we have to go with these options, then we have to configure a web service proxy within which we are going to make use of all these objects. Clear? Any questions? Just go through with the first recording right from the first session. So if you have